Whilst not being very well known, the cracking of the Enigma code is a very significant turning point in World War II. The Enigma machine was a cipher device used by the Germans. It used the Enigma code to encrypt messages that would then be decrypted by the Enigma machine. The Enigma code was thought to be impossible to break by the whole world. Nevertheless, England hired a team of expert mathematicians to tackle the seemingly impossible task, who worked tirelessly throughout the war. They worked under the supervision of Alistair Denniston at the Code and Cipher School headquarters, Bletchley Park. The Enigma code finally was cracked by Alan Turing with the help of his team from Bletchley Park in 1941. The Allies knew that cracking the code would completely change the course of the war into their favour. Without cracking the Enigma, many significant battles such as the Allied invasion of D-Day and the Battle of the Atlantic would not have been won, and could have cost the Allies the war. Whilst difficult to quantify, historians have estimated that without Turing's efforts, the war would have continued for a further 2 years, and 14 million more lives would have been lost. Turing and his team cracked the Enigma code by creating one of the world's first computers, which was infamously called the bomb machine. This was not only a huge victory for the Allies, but would later revolutionize computers in the future. Unfortunately, Turing committed suicide in 1951 due to suffering critical depression from being discriminated and convicted for being a homosexual. When he died, Turing was only 41. The cracking of the Enigma code was a huge turning point in World War II because it allowed the Allies to track the Germans' movements, especially the movements of their U-boats, warships, and air force. The Allies were able to alter the war in their favour by changing their positions and tactics based on what they had learnt from the Germans through Turing's bomb machine. This was especially important as the Atlantic was a main shipping route from England and America during the war, as shown by the map of shipping lines drawn in 1941. Shipping important goods such as much needed military equipment and food to the front lines along with essential supplies for Britain to survive. It was an easy and strategic target for the Germans. Being a small island nation and not having enough farming land to grow enough food for its own population, Britain relied on millions of tons per week of food and other necessities imported just to survive. These shipments would often come from America, but be intercepted by the German Navy and Air Force. Once the Enigma code had been cracked, the Allies were able to avoid the Germans because they knew their positions, which resulted in an increased success rate of ships delivering their goods. They were also able to track, intercept, and sink more German U-boats and warships. As shown by the graph, there is a steep incline of boats lost after the cracking of the Enigma code. These statistics are from the book Torpedo Junction by Homer Hickam. An author of 8 published books and a war veteran, Hickam was very knowledgeable about these events, thus we can assume these statistics are reliable. Furthermore, D-Day, one of the biggest turning points in World War II, would have been nearly impossible without the cracking of the Enigma code. This is due to the fact that the main strategy adopted by the Allies to defeat the Germans was to deceive them that they were going to attack Pas-de-Calais, some 250 kilometers northeast of where they were actually going to attack. The bomb machine came especially handy during this period, where the Allies were intercepting the Germans' messages, ensuring that they had fallen for the trap. This source shows a message decoded by the machine on D-Day. It is just one example of how the cracking of the Enigma code helped the Allies before and during D-Day. This particular source is reliable because it was written by one of the codebreakers at Bletchley Park and passed on to English generals commanding the invasion. The message, translated from German, reads that the Germans have realized that some of the paratroopers dropped were in fact straw dummies. This particular intercepted message is significant because it means the masses of German troops that had gathered near the paratrooper landing site were not needed and would be more useful in other areas of the battle. In response, the Allies alerted their soldiers that German reinforcements would shortly be arriving and gave them according orders. The reliability of this source is proven by the date at the top matching with the date of D-Day, which is 6 of the 6 of 44. We can further assume the reliability because the source, BBC, has no reason to misinform. According to their website, the BBC exists to serve the public and to educate and inform. Furthermore, the BBC is government funded, which means that it will have no specific political affiliations that could cause bias in this situation. Without the cracking of the Enigma code, some of World War II's most important battles, like D-Day, that resulted in the Allies winning the entire war, could not have been won. This is why the cracking of the Enigma code is such a significant turning point in World War II. It just goes to show that to win a war, you don't necessarily need to be the strongest, but you need to be the smartest.